I wanted to go through this worksheet with you because this is going to be really similar to the type of questions you are going to get on the exam. So in some ways, this worksheet is the best way to make sure you are understanding the material you need to do the test. So let's just go through them one by one and talk about what disorder we're looking at here. Jack tells you about the government's plot against him and how he was going to be rescued by alien friends. Okay, when I look at this, the first thing I see is false beliefs. Okay, they believe things that aren't true, and that is a delusion. Okay, a delusion is a false belief, and the only disorder that has that listed that you have to worry about is schizophrenia. Okay, so that's going to be schizophrenia, and schizophrenia does not fall under one of these categories. It is its own unique thing here. Okay, so next one. Emmett has a serious knee injury, but he will not get an MRI because he won't get into the MRI machine. So there's nothing, you kind of have to infer what's going on here. Why won't he get in the MRI machine? Probably because he's afraid of small spaces. And that is claustrophobia or a specific phobia. I don't know if I listed claustrophobia up here. Yeah, I have claustrophobia, so that would be a right answer. But specific phobia would also be a right answer there, because claustrophobia is an example of a specific phobia. All right, Frank awoke one morning and suddenly realized he had another name and a family in another state. He had no idea how he came to be living his present life. Okay, for me, strangely enough, the most important thing here is living in another state. Anytime there is travel, like where you end up and you either don't remember who you are or you have another identity, it's actually what's called a dissociative fugue. Dissociations are when you kind of break apart from yourself. Either you get amnesia, you forget, or you develop another identity. That's a dissociation. But because they said he's traveling, that's a dissociative fugue. Fugue is the only one that has travel, so that's a cue for that one. While teaching class one day, Teresa begins having difficulty breathing. Her heart starts pounding wildly. She's afraid she's going to die. This happens on and off at random times. Well, she's having a panic attack at random times. That fits with what we talked about for panic disorder. Okay. Although Jack enjoys watching the football game, he feels oddly detached. As though he's watching himself and his actions from outside his own body. This has happened several times. Recently, he's worried he will totally lose control of his thoughts and behaviors. So again, he's feeling separate from himself. Okay, so again, we think dissociation, and that is a dissociative disorder called depersonalization, okay, where you don't feel in touch with yourself. Sam is withdrawn and sullen. He lost weight. He's constantly tired and has been showing up to lacrosse practice. Hasn't been showing up. So that is depression, okay? And that's probably not surprising to you. Feels sad, weight changes, eating, appetite changes, fatigue, and isn't interested in things he used to be interested in. Okay, Amy spends much of the day, that should say, washing and rewashing her hands until they're raw. Okay, so that's a compulsion that you can't stop, so that's obsessive compulsive disorder, which is an anxiety disorder. Okay, depression, by the way, up here is a mood disorder. Okay, Jan shakes every article of her clothing and those of her children 3 times in 3 different directions. It takes her about an hour each morning, but she feels something terrible will happen if she doesn't complete the sequence. Again, a compulsion caused by this obsession that if she doesn't do it, something terrible is going to happen. Okay, obsessive compulsive, again, an anxiety disorder. Tony feels shaky and on edge most of the time. Can't put a figure on what's causing his worry. Okay, so it's an all-the-time anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder. Okay, Lindsay goes through stages where she talks very fast, spends large amounts of money, and makes big plans for her future, followed by periods where she's tired and has lost interest in her activities. So you're getting this up and down pattern of bipolar. The first part we're talking about is mania. Those are characteristics typical of mania. And then she heads into the depressive phase. Oops. Okay. Excuse me. Carol attaches herself quickly to new people, showers them with praise and gifts. She needs constant attention and reassurance. If she doesn't get it, she thinks the other person is worthless and doesn't love her, and she cuts herself. Those are typical of borderline personality disorder, okay? So they have this very low sense of self-worth. They tend to show very extreme emotions, either total devotion or totally think you're terrible, okay? And that's a personality disorder, okay? Samantha just got back from Iraq. She has trouble sleeping, has terrible nightmares. When she does sleep, she hears a loud noise. She falls to the ground and feels like she's back in Iraq. So that should not surprise you to find out that's post-traumatic stress disorder. She had a specific trauma and is now having the symptomology of that, and that's an anxiety disorder. Thomas had sudden attacks of anxiety where he feels like he's going to die. Okay, again, panic disorder, which is an anxiety disorder. Kathy worries when there's nothing to worry about, generalized anxiety disorder. John is a thrill seeker. That includes violating the law, okay? That is antisocial personality disorder. If you see violating the law, that's usually what it is. As a matter of fact, most people with mental disorders are less violent than the average person. So that is a stereotype that is incorrect. The one exception is antisocial personality disorder, where you see a lot of, they don't have any sense of guilt. They have no conscience, as it was. So there's nothing, the research shows there's actually probably something wrong with the brain where they don't feel guilt and anxiety. That just doesn't work. So there's nothing to impede their behavior. Okay, Melanie cries constantly, feels worthless, feels like she's letting the family down, doesn't have the energy to complete her household tasks. Probably would not surprise you to hear that's depression, which is a mood disorder. Felicia has periods of time where she can't remember what happened to her, but she'll find herself in a different location. Don't get thrown off with that. I didn't say she was like far, far away. Different location, wearing different clothes that don't match her usual taste. Her husband complains she's moody. She's often confused by the fact that her husband talks about them doing things she doesn't remember. Okay. That is dissociative identity disorder. She's switching from personality to personality. Okay, so one personality doesn't remember what the other personality does, or at least the core personality doesn't remember what the other personalities are doing. Hal is a colonel in the army, but he feels he should be a general. If any of his subordinates disagree with him, he humiliates them. He knows all the ladies want him. Okay, narcissistic personality disorder. He loves himself a lot, too much. Okay, Rick is certain the boss has it in for him. He monitors other people's behavior because he doesn't trust them, and he gets upset if he sees them getting something he deserves. That's paranoid personality disorder. Okay, paranoia could be schizophrenia, or it could be paranoid personality disorder. And the kind of the way to tell the difference is how extreme or how out there is it. If it's paranoia, the FBI is out to get me, that's more like schizophrenia. If it's paranoia kind of within the confines of reality, okay, as Rick is, that's personality disorder. Millie starts sweating and shaking whenever she sees a feather, specific phobia. Okay, Nancy gets very anxious when she's in the line at the grocery store. People are in front of her and behind her. She can't get out of line. She goes out as little as possible. Okay, that's agoraphobia, and as I talked about in the other video, that's fear of being in a situation you can't escape from. Okay, so that's agoraphobia, and again, an anxiety disorder. Jillian can't remember what her name is or what she does for a living. Amnesia, and that's a dissociative disorder. Okay, Jennifer refuses to eat out with her best friend because she's worried she'll spill something on her and other people will stare and laugh. That is social anxiety disorder. As soon as Jim gets on the first rung of a ladder, he starts shaking and sweating. So you can either put specific phobia or acrophobia, because that's a fear of heights, and again, that's an anxiety disorder. Charisse has been having random episodes of intense anxiety. She hates these attacks when they happen in public, so she's been staying home. So panic disorder with agoraphobia. It starts with panic disorder and turns into agoraphobia. Lance has a great new idea for a business. He tells everyone he meets about it in a frenetic, excited tone. He's come up with a long but disorganized business plan. He's sure he can get Google interested in adopting it, and he'll make millions. 2 weeks later, he gives up on a plan. Again, this is mania. So this is bipolar disorder, which is a mood disorder. Dante has a hard time getting motivated when winter rolls around. He sleeps more and eats less. That's seasonal affective disorder, and that is a mood disorder because of the seasons. Sheila eats very few calories a day and exercises often. She feels happy when she loses another ounce, is disgusted with herself when she weakens and eats a bite of pizza. And you probably know that's anorexia nervosa, which is an eating disorder. Okay. Jennifer has been really stressed out, so she stops at the convenience store, eats a whole box of Little Debbie snacks cakes. Okay, so that's bulimia, which is an eating disorder, and I'm not going to do all these. Kenneth is always asking to borrow money, never pays it back. He lies about the reason he needs it, spends it on cigarettes and alcohol, has been fired, quit from every job. Again, antisocial, very manipulative, can be charming, doesn't worry about violating norms. Angela gets very quickly in relationships. She's sure it's Mr. Right, the most perfect man ever. She loves her partners intensely, but is super jealous. Tries to talk them out of spending time with their friends, gets angry easily, again, borderline. I'm going to skip these next three. They're real examples of things from disorders, but I won't give you anything that complicated. So I want to make sure I finish and go down to these. But the real answers to these are in your section 14, chapter 14 materials. Okay, so these are symptoms. So now you're matching symptoms. George believes he's the president of the United States. That's a false belief, and it's specifically a delusion of grandeur. Dick believes his neighbors have planted hidden cameras throughout his house. Still a delusion, this time a paranoid delusion. Willie says the lilies are fetching the light bulb squarely to the right. That is word salad or disorganized speech, which goes along with disorganized schizophrenia. Sally sits in one place without moving for hours. Catatonia. That goes with catatonic schizophrenia. Juan is told by his mother that his mother has died. He shows no response. That is flat affect. That's a negative symptom of schizophrenia. Jane has another personality named Julie. That's a dissociation. Ben has constant thoughts about killing his loved ones. Okay, that's an obsession. A thought you can't control. Jennifer must touch each button on the phone 3 times. That's a compulsion, okay? Reducing the anxiety that she feels if she doesn't do that, okay? Jeff is sweating, his heart is racing, he's having difficulty breathing, is a panic attack. Dwayne's hearing voices, okay? So that's a hallucination. Hallucination, you're hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, seeing something that's not there. You have to keep that separate from delusions, and that also goes with schizophrenia. Lisa thinks she's chosen by God as a disciple, false delusion of grandeur. Okay. And then match the school of thoughts. I know I'm talking fast. Dante focuses his attention on bad things that have happened. He believes bad things will happen in the future if good things happens. He attributes them to random chance or luck. So they're focused on how he's thinking. It's cognitive. Monica feels depressed. She notices if her friends pay attention to her and try to cheer her up when she acts sad. So that's behavioral. She's getting rewarded for her behavioral. Luke lacks confidence in his own inner self. He spends time trying to live up to others' expectations. That goes back to the humanist perspective that we talked about in chapter 13. And unpleasant experiences buried in the conscious mind is psychodynamic. Sorry I talked fast through that last part. But if you have any questions about why something's the right answer, don't hesitate to contact me. I hope you're having a good day.